But I
That's
have a
one
feeling
cartoon I
there was
never.
supposed to be more nostalgia that I didn't catch on to because in our little
Yes.
pre-discussion, Nick lambasted me already. He really hurt my fifis by not recognizing a few of the many cameos that we had in this episode.
Gen Wars. Welcome back to Gen Wars, the combative and sometimes agreeable, seemingly more agreeable recently, podcast between the Gen Xers and the, let's go with the filthy, dirty, downright dog millennials.
Dog millennials. Wow. I thought we had gotten so much past this. I can't believe you.
We did. I just
can't
figured I'd bring
believe
it back
you would
just
do
for
this to me.
Oh, man. So today we're going to be going over X-Men 97, Episode 10, Tolerance's Extinction, Part 3. We've developed a system to keep us on track, and these topics of discussion are nostalgia bias, production value, spirit, intent, and emotional value, rewatchability, and overall thoughts, and I guess predictions now moving forward into Season 2. So make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you go over to Steven's channel as well, Funky Games, and watch myself and Steven and the rest of the Funky Boys play through quintessential video games that you may not have beat, and nor have we.
But we're going to. We're going to beat those games.
But we're going... Yes, exactly. Also, before we get into anything, spoiler warning. This is going to be a heavy spoiler episode, so please go and watch it first before you get into anything here. And so now that we got that covered, Steven, what do you got for the nostalgia bias of this episode?
I really liked seeing the Avenger designs. I think, like, given that, like, the original Iron Man is over a decade old at this... Is that... Yeah, it's over a decade old.
Yeah, that was in the early 2000s at this point.
Yeah. So even just seeing the Avengers kind of like interacting with society, like we're pretty past that in the Disney Marvel era. So having them kind of still at the forefront of at least the human side of this, and I think there's an interesting dynamic of who they're choosing to like showcase of like superhero, like not all superheroes are mutants, but like some mutants are superheroes that are a little bit more accepted into the humanity side of things. The original Iron Man, animated Iron Man design was really cool for me. I enjoyed that. But I have a feeling there was supposed to be more nostalgia that I didn't catch on to because in our little pre-discussion, Nick lambasted me already. He really hurt my fifis by not recognizing a few of the many cameos that we had in this episode.
Cloak and Dagger. Didn't ever think we'd see Cloak and Dagger.
Not after. Didn't they have just like an abysmal like Disney Plus series that didn't do well?
Yes, they did. It was pretty. Was it Disney Plus that did that one?
Pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even watch it. I was like, I should probably catch. I heard some good things, but I also, other than the few people that I heard that said, oh, it was, at least watch it. It was not well received, or I didn't hear much about it. So maybe I'll go check it out at some point. But we get Daredevil, which was awesome. Didn't think, again, we have all of the Marvel IPs at our disposal, so they were just like, here you go, here's some more.
Look what we got. We've got all the Marvel characters.
And we got Doctor Strange in there.
Being a doctor, which I thought was funny.
Yes, doing his stuff, with his sling ring and everything. And then we got Reed Richards in there with Morphs turning into Reed Richards.
Yes.
Later on in the episode, as well as Sauron, something like that. I think his name's Sauron. He's the pterodactyl mutant.
Oh yeah.
It was real quick when they jumped out of the Sentinel and landed. He jumped out as like morph changed into Sauron and landed, so he could fly out without splatting on the ground. And yes, they showed Silver Samurai again, Omega Red, and I don't know the whole team that was there. I don't know his team that he was with. I didn't think he ran with a team, so that was kind of lost on me. I'm sure. Comment below, tell me who all those other people were in the background. I assumed one of them was Polaris, but I don't think she was ever with him, so I don't think that's who that was. We got Psylocke. There was twins. I don't know the twins' names, and Puck. Never thought I'd see Puck in anything. One of those guys that was always had the card for. Occasionally you'd see him pass through an issue here and there. Don't really know much about him. I just know he's a little guy, and he kind of works in the same vein as Wolverine, where they kind of just speedball him at things. At least that's what I remember it. Maybe I'm wrong there, but never thought I'd see him. But yeah, so they were just throwing everything in the kitchen, everything and the kitchen sink into this episode, which was pretty fantastic.
You said you had the card. What card was there? Was it like
the X-Men cards from 1991 to, I think they did it for about 3 or 4 years. It was a Marvel run of Marvel cards.
Interesting.
I have like 2 full sets of them.
Oh.
There.
You should put those
Absolutely.
on screen. Editor Nick is just getting
yes, absolutely.
ruined right here. Yeah, that was before my time as the filthy, dirty millennial that I am. So were they just like the Topps collectible? Like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the last episode when I was talking about Nightcrawler. I put up the 2 different cards that I had that they put out in 2 different years. He had both the swords that we were talking about.
Yeah, and I realized that he had the swords in the intro title card later, and I think it was just the third one that threw me, because I thought, wow, cool. I don't think they showcase that as often as I thought.
Yeah. So those are the Marvel cards. But yeah, I'll put some up here so you see what they are. So everything, and the kitchen sink and the bathwater and the baby and they're just, hey, we got everything.
Do you know where we have everything? At the Funky Store. Speaking of nostalgia, Funky Store. You can go there. You can buy nostalgia merch. It helps the channel. It helps both of our channels. Go over to funky.store to get yourself some nostalgia t-shirts. We got some De Niro sweaters. That it fits your bill. Like, the boys wear it. I wear it. It's great stuff. It's made in St. Louis, so you can check it out at funky.store.
There you go. All right, so moving into production value. Another heavy production valued episode. Lasers and explosions galore. I know you just got off the heels of watching it, so...
Yeah, no, I think Rogue's onslaught on Bastion was just... They have got this really physical, animated like fight scene really down pat. Like, you can just feel all the impacts. You can feel I think there's a difference between weight and passion in animated like fight scenes, and I think they've really got that balance down. Like, you can see like the really raw strength and the like fury, because there's difference when Rogue is like tossing around like the Egyptian soldiers later, and then when she's fighting Bastion, and it like, it's still a display of strength, and it's still like kind of jumping into it, but just like that passion, impact, like how they're animating it really showcases like raw emotion and raw capability in a better way than I think I've ever seen in an animated style.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Invincible last week, but that kind of lands in that same vein of having that raw emotion, and like, you haven't watched it yet, but when you see it, you'll go, oh, I see what he was saying. Like,
and I see
that
it.
Lends itself
and this is like the only time that, because Invincible is still done like pretty traditional 2D, like not necessarily frame by frame, but leveraging not 3D models like this is.
No, it's on occasion. I think on occasion they
Okay,
do.
yeah, for like
But
ships
for
and
the most
stuff.
part,
Yeah.
it stays like pretty traditional 2D animation.
Yeah, because I think we're getting a lot of the benefit of the 3D fluidity that can happen. I saw this a
Yeah.
lot in Nimona. I saw this a lot in Spider-Verse content. This is really where it's paying off, where this marriage of like 2D traditional animation and 3D animation is, I think it's just really good. I'm a sucker and I'm a glutton for 2D animation, but like when we look at things like what's that, Klaus, that Christmas movie that took a long time to do
Oh,
because they were really working on like how do we emulate 2D into 3D. There's a lot of stylistic difference, but I just, the more we work towards this technological marriage of like traditional like technique into like the tech, it really works. It really sings here. And I think where Spider-Verse oozes style and the TMNT movie oozes style, they're still leveraging like a lot of like tricks, like visual tricks with like frame rate and whatnot, where we're not seeing that here as much, in at least to like the naked eye, but where we're just really leveraging like really dynamic framing, really dynamic like breaking the rig intentionally, and impact and physics. Like when Bastion's like regenerating or like taking the hit and he's getting mangled, like it looks great every time. So it's just
a lot of good squashing when she punches him in the face and his face mushes off to the side. Very, very awesome. I was going to say they also did it, and this was a long time ago, but I just watched a retrospective on like how rough it was for the original Futurama show. But they did a traditional 2D animation and then incorporated a lot of 3D elements, like the ships flying and just random stuff that would come about that would they would end up using the 3D elements to kind of bridge those gaps.
Right.
And that was obviously like, 10, 15 years ago at this point.
more than that.
Oh, I know. I gotta stop. We gotta stop going back. I'm like, oh, that was yesterday, right? No, it wasn't yesterday. So on to the next point of spirit, intent, and emotional value, which kind of bridges that gap with the production value, where the emotion and all the punches and things, they also add. I'm watching it through frame by frame to pull stills now, and if you watched it close enough, when Rogue goes in for that punch, she's crying. She's got tears flowing from her eyes as she's hitting him and saying, his name was Gambit, remember it. When Scott rips off his binoculars, off his goggles to blast Bastion because they hurt Nathan, he's got tears rolling out of his eyes too. Like, they are showing you that these characters are going through a lot, and it is heavy for them in these moments.
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
Scott's DBZ level scream in that moment was also fantastic. Like, I really like that.
I don't know how often they kind of, I guess this is where I know it from, is from the X-Men, Capcom X-Men games, Street Fighter versus X-Men. He has that big optic blast for his special, and they used that in here, and I was very excited when I saw that. Not just him ripping it off and just going ham, but that very specific looking beam that he throws. I guess this kind of, again, falls in that bridges that gap of production value and in spirit and intent, is the tears in this episode, this whole series. People are crying. They did it's very emotional. Yes, you can have the drawn tears and such on people's faces are fantastic. I don't know why I gravitated to that while watching, and I was like, wow, they did a really good job showing these characters really feeling these emotional pieces. This was the first time I brought it up here, though.
Yeah, and I really like that with the theming that they were doing with so like in theater and stuff, is like when you're so overwhelmed with emotion you sing. I think this is a great way of just like showing like, hey, this is truly like emotionally impactful. So like there's going to be crying, there's going to be tears. But I did notice, like, speaking to like the spirit and emotion of the episode, there was that like tide motif, like being overwhelmed, the tide coming in, the tide of the future, Magneto being overwhelmed by the rising tide in his psyche. So like the water and tears and overwhelmed and overpowered and all of that kind of content was really nice to see in this episode. And I think it tied all of the dynamics together, which they've done consistently throughout this series, of like kind of really latching on to a singular emotional beat and showcasing how, even though everybody's on contrasting sides and balancing at least 3 or 4 different sides in this episode, where you have humanity versus mutants, you have X-Men versus Magneto, you have X-Men versus Bastion, you have Bastion versus humans. Like, there's a lot of dynamics, but they're really kind of all balancing that same emotional beat of just being overwhelmed by the tide of change, the tide of emotion, the tide of reality, those kind of things.
Yeah, that's a really good overarching storytelling beat that they've able to tie into all those pieces for sure. That leads us into rewatchability. I know I'm going back for a third.
I'm going back
a third viewing of this, and especially as a whole now.
They said it's all you can eat. I'm going back up to the buffet. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm going back multiple times. But yeah, they have exceeded all my expectations with this show. And I have a couple thoughts in the overalls, but definitely will be viewing this multiple times over. And I've been poking around my friend group asking who is watching or who isn't watching, and being like, hey, I think we need to start.
I think it's time you get on board.
Yeah. It's over now. Like, you can just binge it if you really want to.
Yeah.
I know the week to week can be hard for some people.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to like people's lifestyle, because like I used to be such a binger, and then just as my life has changed with different things going into it, like I could barely cram in the one episode. And like when it drops in a timely fashion, like granted, like if we weren't our production schedule here at the wonderful Fire Hazard 508 Creations channel, I would probably catch it within the first day or so pretty easily. But like finding the time to watch all 10 episodes, like a 5-hour bender, time is long past for me.
There's been something, and I guess this has been Netflix has done it a little bit, but the Disney week to week, especially with like The Mandalorian, and then your much loved Obi-Wan, and
what?
But the appointment television of it all, like I come from appointment television. You know, that's when I grew up. Like, you had to be there at the time. If you weren't there to watch it, you missed it. And it's brought something that I get excited when Wednesday comes up and the new episode is dropping. I've enjoyed it to that. Yes, I do love to sit down and just hammer through a season of a show, but there is also something that is enjoyable about watching it week to week and getting excited for the next.
Dare you say Saturday morning cartoon vibes?
Yeah. No, I watched a lot of cartoons on Saturday mornings for sure.
Right. No, I think just this is what, if Disney Plus did this out the gates, they would have never struggled. Hands down. I can say that pretty confidently.
With all their shows?
Yeah.
Or with, any of the Star Wars stuff they did. I don't know what else.
Well, I'm not saying, because they've always done the release schedule, but just have the quality that we're seeing, and like all of the great story beats, storytelling. I would say that the only ones that fall into this for me personally is X-Men 97, Loki, and Bad Batch are probably the only ones since Disney Plus started X amount of years ago. The weekly release is fine when the content is good and something worth looking forward to.
Yes, okay, I see what you're saying now.
80% of the content that's been pushed out in the last few years from Disney has not hit that mark, in my book.
Okay. Yeah, you guys get over to Steven's channel, Funky Games, and you can listen to him and Dan Savage, Dandy Savage, have a retelling or rewriting of many Star Wars properties.
Yes. The day Disney sells Star Wars is going to be the greatest day.
I don't think that's ever going to happen, but who is bigger to buy that? I don't think anybody.
They could do like a big lot sale, kind of like a yard sale or something, and just like get rid of some of their IPs that they've mishandled so poorly.
That would be interesting for sure. All right, so that moves us into the overall thoughts and, I guess, predictions moving into season 2, if you'd like to predict anything.
So we obviously have Apocalypse. We're already doing some timeline stuff, which I think is really leveraged well with bringing Bishop back. You have Cable that is... So you have Bishop, Cable, and Forge.
Yep.
Jubilee, Sunspot of the X-Men. Is that it? In current era?
Oh, where they currently here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beast.
Yeah. So
no, Beast was on the ship.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Beast was on the ship. Yeah. Beast is.
We don't know where Morph is. Morph was the only one that we hadn't seen.
Oh, yeah. So he can do whatever. But you've got like 3 parties essentially. You have like people in current era. Yes. You have people in the past and people in the future. So I'm very curious to see how long that arc goes for. Is it solved within 1 or 2 episodes, or is it the whole season? Which I think would be cool. A lot to juggle for the writing team, but
absolutely,
I think it's going to be pretty. Everybody's going to go on like their kind of like last like seal the deal on their personal arc in a couple episodes, and then they're going to reunite to start fighting Apocalypse in the future. I don't think they're going to stay in current era.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, I guess they have to go to get them. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have to jump through some sort of
I don't think it's going to be everybody reuniting in current era. I think it's going to be everybody going to the future, dealing with it there, and then taking the tech back to current era.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. There was a big thought of, and I know we had discussed this off here, but the prevailing theory was that Onslaught was going to be introduced as the bad guy, which did not happen.
Right. It was always going to be Apocalypse.
They showed him since it was like mid-season. They just kept, when Cable was about to be introduced or introduced more, they kept showing that one scene in the intro of him and Apocalypse. And I was like, that's going to be a thing.
Yeah,
and
it's Apocalypse. It was always Apocalypse.
Showed up. Yeah. I mean, I guess this is where I said last week that there's a good chance they're going to swerve us. My swerve was wrong. My swerve idea was wrong, but they swerved us where they were leading down this path of it being Onslaught, because in the comic books, this was where Charles was in Magneto's mind and birthed Onslaught from that. And so we were there, we were in that moment, and they didn't pay that off.
Well, we could have a timeline split then.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying it just didn't happen at the moment. That's not to say that it isn't there and or coming down the road. It just didn't happen when we all expected it, which is good. Like I'm watching the episode gearing up because I had watched a bunch of other stuff and everyone's like, here comes Onslaught. So I'm like, all right. And then it never happened. And I was like, oh, that's nice.
You got debated by the community. Good job.
I totally did. This is why you don't watch content like this.
Yeah,
when they're
just
trying to
enjoy the
predict
content
stuff.
in the package that's delivered to you. When it's brought to your table, you're like, that's good. And then the people on the other
it
table
aside.
that's getting a different experience, and you don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. They ordered something, they tried something new that they didn't like. That's nothing to do. You're a regular here at this restaurant, just to eat the food that they ordered.
Yeah, I wrote down not where I thought this was going at all. Like had no that they had a good swerve there. Yeah, so Rogue, Nightcrawler, Xavier, Beast, and Magneto were in the past that we saw so far. Jean and Scott are in the future, and then everybody else is currently present, and Morph is somewhere. So that should be interesting to find out. We had two good Morph moments here.
Yes.
We had the Morph when they changed into Sinister as Sinister lost his powers, which was
True
I thought it was very interesting that she stripped him of his. I don't know if she stripped him of his powers. I think she just stripped him of all the mutant DNA that he had collected to become Sinister.
Yeah, because he was essentially a DNA vampire is kind of how I was always rationalized what he do. He was sustaining himself. Well, I guess that's... Yeah, I guess that checks.
That kind of is how I understood his powers to be, or he would get mutants and then snag their powers for his own. So she seemingly just stripped him of all of those. That doesn't... I didn't take that as he was devoid of anything moving forward. Like he can always regain those powers and do that again. That's my understanding. I could be wrong about that. But when he walked up to Morph and
show me my face,
gave perfect. It was perfect. Now the other one that was a little more questionable was when Morph turned into Jean. Told Wolverine that she loved him and was like, you're going to get through this.
They've shown that they're willing to do that, though.
Yeah, I get why they did it. And you want to make
it's
sure
it's part
that
of your power kit, so leverage it when you can.
Through.
So, Wolverine's not going to know. He's dying.
Yeah. No. It wasn't a matter of him knowing or not. It was more so a matter of it being weird. It just being... awkward, I guess.
I guess it's more of a moral question than weird question.
Because
I see totally within the kit,
yes.
like when you're a deceiving character and you're using it for good. I mean, there's just that level of morality at question. If it works and you're still operating with good intent, then
yeah,
I don't see it as weird.
It just
morally gray.
It just came. I guess it came across as odd. So there was a board on the wall that Forge was standing in front of, and he was doing his tinkering and whatever he was making. It had presumed dead, off world, so on and so forth. But we have
Scarlet Witch. I thought was an interesting one.
Yes. She's up there. We got Havoc, Colossus, Iceman are still up on the board, which I thought are awesome and definitely contenders for season 2. Yep. I'm excited for that. There was the Magneto report on his desk, the Magneto protocol.
Yeah.
Folder
of blow it out of the sky. That's like a real elaborate protocol there.
So what's great, and obviously they kept true to continuity, is that on the sheet it said children, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, which in the movies they threw that out the door. And also the power level, his power level. Oh yeah,
the chart was hilarious.
Like that was very much from those X-Men, those Marvel cards that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like I used to spend hours just looking at the back and reading everyone's power levels and their stamina and what their stats were. I thought those were, and then I saw that and I was like, oh, that's just like the cards.
It's like the cards. It's like how I remembered it. You
Gen
Xers aren't supposed to be nostalgic. What's going on here?
Okay, so here's one of those rule breaking or things that pulled me out, and I had to keep telling myself that it's just a cartoon. Stop this. Everybody's out in outer space. Well, first off, Bastion hit the meteor with great force. We're in outer space. We're in orbit.
Within orbit.
Or in orbit, So I guess where does that lend itself? It moved the asteroid when he hit it, but would that continue to move it based on physics?
It doesn't sound like they broke orbit. It sounds like they were within atmosphere.
Okay. All right. That's just one that I pointed out that I grabbed onto. The other one was they went to the moon. Correct? Well, first off, Apocalypse has a base on the moon. That is an Apocalypse.
Did they go to the moon in the series, or are you saying in the episode?
Yeah. In this episode. She punched him out Rogue punched Bastion out the wall of Asteroid M, and then tackled him, and they flew all the way, and she smashed him down to the moon. Even stood up in front, which also had Apocalypse base on the moon, which was all carved out of Apocalypse head.
Right.
I don't remember if it was from the original 5 seasons before that, if that was part of his that left over. I don't know. I don't remember that. Someone comment down below if that was a leftover piece from the original 5. But can Rogue even survive in outer space? And I actually started reading Reddit, and she was on the list, but if she took other people's powers. So I don't know where this was, like just a Reddit thread that was just running down lists and people arguing back and forth about who could and who could not survive in outer space. She was on there, but she had to take other people's powers to do so. So
I feel it falls within like whatever super strength is, because I feel like there's levels of that, but Rogue definitely seems like on the upper levels of super strength. So like her skeleton's not going to collapse from.
No, but she's
pressure.
sitting there standing on the moon, just like panting, and I'm like, that's not. Shut up! It's a cartoon.
Yeah,
it's fine. She's Rogue. I was giving her that. Now Jubilee, on the other hand, it's a little more. I don't want to say egregious.
Yeah,
but she gets blown out into outer space or into orbit or whatever that is.
She was in atmosphere. When Sunspot, because she was falling, so you're within atmosphere at that point.
Okay, but how like, and they were just floating there. Can she breathe? Can you breathe in that? Or very?
Someone's got some explaining to do.
Someone's got. So those were those little things that I kept going. Shut up! It's a cartoon. Yes, if we analyze but
they've been so good about it for so long. So that's where I think it's okay to call out like what's going on there.
Yeah, those were those. I'm like, let it slide. We'll discuss it with Steven later. I'm sure there'll be some comments about it in the comments. But at least I feel that I guess to point it out. But again, shut up. It's not a big deal. Like, so those were just things that I had picked up on. I was like, I need to address this. They also had, we had King T'Chaka because it was 97. T'Challa hadn't taken over for his father yet.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little addition. Another
perfect nod.
Put that back in nostalgia bias of it all. But go for it.
I think it was a fantastic show. Definitely a very strong. I'm going to call it a first season, even though it's building on foundation of 5 seasons prior. But I think it stands really well on its own. I think the team deserves all of the credit of a fantastic first season. Hope for many a renewal as long as it makes sense within storytelling devices. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Probably the most I've enjoyed a series in a long time.
We have 2 already slated, so
1 and 2 or 2 additional.
2 additional. They already had greenlit, I think, season 2 before this aired, and then after the first 2 episodes, they immediately greenlit season 3.
Yeah, well,
So
as long as we keep whoever's writing dialogue on, and if we're keeping that main storyline intact, if we're bringing on new writers that are going to now we're going to throw that out with the bathwater, then I'll finally get to go into my full villain arc of being a hater.
Excellent. Well, on that note, we're going to have our first movie episode coming out of Gen Wars, Beast Wars, the thing that started this whole podcast. Keep an eye out for it.
When it's out, it'll be linked. That'll be great.
And you guys will get to see our love and or hatred for
passion.
Passion. There we go. Our passion for the movie.
Wonderful.
All right, Steven, you want to round us out here?
Make sure you like and subscribe to both our channels, Fire Hazard 508 Creations, where he makes playthings into display things and does a lot of other great things, like Was It Worth It?, which is a great look at a blind box of undelivered mail and all things that are great. And you can find out Was It Worth It? And then you can check out my channel, Funky Games, where we play through quintessential video games, because we're video game posers, and we want to beat all the quintessential video games, so we are no longer video game posers. So check us out at Funky Games. That's all I got.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys again for joining us for this episode and the full season. What is this? Season 6 of... I guess this is deemed season 6 of X-Men 97. And we'll be back for season 2. So thanks again, and we'll check you next time.
Bye-bye.